All right. We are live. Let's go.
We are live on Super Bowl Sunday.
Started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself. I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm going to have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Oh, there's going to be talking. There's going to be a lot of talking. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think there's going to be yelling. There's going to be ranting. There's going to be some public call-outs. Graham Moseman, we're publicly calling you out. We'll get to that later.
We do love you, Graham.
We love you, Graham, but we're calling you out.
Yeah.
I think the only person that's going to be happy on this is Devin, but we'll get to that. Hi, hello, Devin. You follow us on Twitter, podcast_hockey. We are live on Facebook, facebook.com, the hockey podcast, youtube.com, the hockey podcast. We are live there as well. And you can subscribe to the podcast shortly after that before we get to Super Bowl Sunday. But Devin, I'll start with you. How are you? As I said, you're probably going to be the most happiest out of all of us.
Good morning, and yes, I guess good afternoon. And if you're Mountain Time, it was a good night last night. I thoroughly enjoyed both games. Both my teams won, and not to put salt in the wound or anything, but anytime that any one of my teams can beat the Canucks, I'm more than happy.
Oh, that's not much of an effort required these days.
Yeah, Tyler, hello. Yeah, that was yeah.
Yeah, good morning, Kevin, Sean. Good afternoon to you, Sean and Devin. Yeah, time zones. We got to get that figured out here. The sun has returned up here, so that's good. We got an Arctic outflow, and looks like a few days of dry and cold weather, so we might be getting out on the ponds again. Be great.
Sunny here too. I hear it's minus 902 in Calgary, Sean.
It's not quite. We're not in Edmonton where it was minus 40 something last night. We're only at minus 30 here in Calgary. So you folk in Vancouver, guess what? You have no sympathy from the rest of the prairies right now when you have your special weather advisory for minus 5.
Yeah.
What a joke!
Hold on here. I need to defend the Vancouverites here, which partially, it's kind of weird. But minus 5 here is cold. Like it is, I would say it's like a minus 15 in Calgary.
For my time in Vancouver, I don't know, just being on the ocean and there's something different about it. When it does drop below zero, it feels a lot colder than it actually is.
It's true.
Yeah.
No, it is. It is a wet cold out there, and it's a dry cold here. So I honestly, I'd rather take this minus 20-ish over a minus 5 to minus 10 in Vancouver, for sure.
Yeah, I give Vancouverites a hard time for that, with that in there. Whenever there's a light dusting of snow, the whole city shuts down. But
that is stupid.
But I have done the fly from Calgary at minus 30 to Victoria at like plus 2, and I'm colder in Victoria because it's a damp cold. It just gets in you and you just cannot get rid of it. In Calgary, and then I'm pretty sure it's probably the same up where Tyler is in northern BC. It's a drier cold. So once you get out of the cold and you get inside in a nice warm spot, you warm up quickly. Not in Vancouver and on the coast when it's a humid cold.
For us, we're located in an area where it changes between the two. Right now, we're going into a dry period and colder temperatures, but most of the winter, it's more like Vancouver. It's wet and miserable, but still feeling quite cold.
Yeah, I'm sure that everyone on the podcast right now has wanted us to hear to talk about the weather.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just been the primary topic
Yes.
on Canucks minds here.
Well, frigid like the attitude of the fan base right now.
Frigid. There we go. Nice. There's a
Said to
professional.
work it back.
Work it back.
There you go.
This was a unbelievably disastrous this week. There's no other way to say it, really. You come out of so let's look back. Last Saturday, I was on with Jamie Don at Sportsnet 650. I said I think that it was not unreasonable for the Canucks to at least split points out of this, gets at least 6 to 8 out of 12. We all agreed with that. They played a great game Saturday night against Winnipeg, probably one of their best of the season. And then Tyler Toffoli took over in Montreal, and then Jason Spezza, 37-year-old Jason Spezza, scored a hat trick on Thursday, and then last night. Sean and Tyler, I didn't get the chance to ask you who wants to go first, so I'm going to let you two decide, and then just we'll go from there.
You're up, Sean.
Oh, you want me to go?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Wind them up.
Let's go, baby.
I am just absolutely embarrassed right now. The way the Canucks are playing, the way that they seem to give up after that first goal. They give up that first goal, and they have no confidence that they can come back. They have no confidence that they can score. They have no confidence to actually even make a play. It's just frustrating to no end because they have the skill. Petey's got the skill. Miller's got the skill. Besser's got the skill. Horvat's got the skill. Hughes has got the skill. The top end of this roster has the skill to win a game and get this team back in a game, but they just do not have any confidence in their game. They bobble almost every pass. They bobble every chance they have to make a play to get out of a zone. They try and make these fancy plays when all you need to do is just get it glass out, get it deep, and start forechecking. But unfortunately, they outside of Niels Höglander, no one seems to want to fucking forecheck. Yeah, it's get the puck in deep, grind it out, get some dirty goals. It doesn't matter. Like once the goal is on the score sheet, it doesn't matter how pretty or ugly it is. Just get some freaking dirty ass goals so that you can start getting your confidence back. Get the puck out, get it deep, and just work your ass off. I do not want to see any more like shitty back checks. I do not want to see any more shitty forechecks where you're questioning the effort of these players because the effort's there. Like it's just they're frustrated and they're lacking confidence and they're overthinking things. But at this point, it's time to really simplify things and stop trying to be fancy and just get the puck on net, drive the net hard, create chances, create rebounds, create chaos in front of the net, and just whack away until you get a fucking goal. It's that fucking simple at this point for them. Like if you cannot, if all these little fancy dinky little plays are not working, it's time to stop doing them. And it's time to really just make the simple pass, move the puck up ice, get it deep, get the puck and just get it on net and drive the net hard. And if you can't do that, then you need to sit. It's that simple now. This next week is going to be the make or break week for the Canucks in this season. They are right on the edge of they're out of it in terms of just realistically. Yes, they could go on a run and come back in, but they're still within striking distance. They're still in a fucking playoff spot based off of points because yes, they played a lot more games, but still have to win those games. The other teams still have to win those games. And so, like, if they can find a way to right this ship in this next week, they still have a chance. But the way they're playing, they do not. Like, they need to make a full 180 in terms of visible effort and decision making. And if they don't, this season's going to be a write-off. We're going to, and you don't know what this team's going to look like going into the fall of 2021. You don't know who the coach is going to be. You don't know who the GM is going to be. You don't know who's going to be on this team. Like if this team wants to go forward as a core, they need to fucking step up and find a way to actually play at the NHL level, because they're not right now.
No, they're definitely not. I would say that they look defeated before the games even started, and why is that? It's just I don't know. And right now, the way that it's gone, whatever the coaching staff is preaching, if the players aren't getting the results, there's really no buy-in, and everybody's just kind of, I don't know, just sort of blowing in the wind. You got a few guys trying to do things too fancy, like you mentioned, Sean. Even in the wins, there was a lot of overpassing and a lot of difficulty handling the puck, but they could get away with that against a team like Ottawa. That's just not working. The odd thing about this, though, is that even though it looks so poor and it feels like they haven't won a single game yet, you got Brock Besser and Bo Horvat up there in terms of the goal totals, league stat. There's things that are good, and really, their struggles have mostly been against two teams, Toronto and Montreal. They got a split against Edmonton. They got a win against Winnipeg. They got the sweep against Ottawa. Calgary, they lost to, yes, but didn't look as bad as it's been against Toronto and Montreal. So, is it just those two opponents, or is it something worse? I think most people feel like it's something worse. But if you're ownership and you're watching and it's Hockey Night in Canada and you're playing Toronto and you see that last night, I don't know if that's not the straw that breaks it here. I don't know what is, man. Like, does the guy have pride? Like, I mean, if you're the owner of the team and you really have you have the level of pride and you want to see a good competitive product. I mean, you're not seeing it right now. Kevin Bieksa is after the game saying you're fun to play against. Yeah, it's true, and it's a really damning statement about where the Canucks are at right now.
I feel like Devin has something to say, so I'll give him the floor. And by the way, people feel free to comment. We're a safe space.
Yeah.
Vent away, just like Sean just did. To me, it just looks like Green has lost the room. They're not listening to him. I feel like from what I know of Travis Green, he's not an over complex coach. He tries to keep things simple, and they're just not listening to him, and they're not executing the way that they have. The fall from grace that they've had here with the being from in the bubble till now, that's massive, and there's something wrong with that. And I personally don't believe that Markstrom and Tanev, the loss of those, and Toffoli they were big, but she shouldn't be falling apart like this. Like, I feel bad for the Canucks fans, and they're just, you guys are so passionate, and it sucks when you're expecting something similar to last year and you come out the way that it has. It sucks, and you want to have that competitive balance between teams. I would love to see a back and forth game between Toronto and Vancouver, and that it hasn't happened. And to me, it's coaching, and that seems like the easiest way to go right now is to fire Travis Green, and bring in potentially Gallant or. I was poking and prodding these guys on our group chat last night, saying Mike Babcock, for God's sakes. And I know that's not going to happen, but yeah.
It's disrespectful, Devin. It's disrespectful.
Yeah, it just seems like, something has to change. Either Benning's gone or Green is gone. But right now it seems like Green has lost the room.
I'll start. I'm going to start from the top, and I'm going to go down. I think it's very clear at this point that Jim Benning doesn't have the respect of this organization one way or the other. It's hard not to say that he like, you're right, Devin. Markstrom and Tanev shouldn't have had this impact, and Stetcher and Toffoli, but it really appears that what the problem isn't that they left, it's how they left. One thing that has not been talked about enough is the whole pursuit of Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Like, that whole episode when probably it would have been a smarter thing to negotiate with Chris Tanev. Probably would have been better. Markstrom, there was debate. You saw you had this Thatcher Demko, I think, 6x6. I think that was a reasonably understanding thing. We watched Tyson Barrie last night. For the love of God, are you seriously telling me that you would rather sit and negotiate with Tyson Barrie over Troy Stecher? Tyler Toffoli, yes. I mean, he only was there for 10 games, but it really feels like I can't trust Jim Benning to make a move anymore. There were even reports this week that Chris Tanev is still pissed off at Jim Benning. So the way that was handled, I think it's hard for me to imagine that Jim Benning has any trust in. I think it's fair to say in my mind, and we have been generally fairly positive in not wanting to let people go here. I think that's been a fair thing to say. But in my mind, I think it's pretty clear that Jim Benning should not be the general manager much longer, in my mind and in my opinion here. Something's with Travis Green. I don't know what's going on here, but it certainly seems like Devin's right. They are not listening to him. Now, it could be as simple as not having Manny Malhotra, who was with this organization for 10 years? He was with the team for a long time. He went to Toronto. I mean, there was a lot that was said publicly about, or we made some assumptions publicly. We don't know what happened privately, and I'm not going to sit and speculate on that. But that was a huge loss of the organization as well, and it was a huge loss of the coaching staff. And so I don't know at this point. That certainly they're not listening for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, because I still think Travis Green is a good coach, but something happened there. And it's another, and sorry, on Hockey Night in Canada, your 4:00 game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, you can't have Braden Holtby and JT Miller having a shouting match in the middle of the ice like that. I understand. I'm not blaming Braden Holtby for getting upset. I think he had every right to be upset at JT Miller, but JT Miller it's been a struggle. I don't know what exactly is going on there. I'm giving a lot of deep insight here, but to me, if they don't make a major move here soon, I think that the consumer confidence in this market's already gone. But I think that this season will be wasted, and I think it has to. I think for sure at this point, the first thing has to be Benning, and I think you got to take Green with him. Unfortunately,
yeah, I'm a big Green fan. I think he's a really good coach, but I think he's been put in a really shitty situation here where he lost 2 to 3 key members of the leadership group.
He lost 5 players, really. I mean, Josh Levo. I mean, I'm not saying that Josh Levo is the greatest player in the world, but it's another person that you lost. And
yeah, I'm sorry. Like I like Levo, but he's not one of the reasons why the Canucks are falling the way they have.
That's not what I'm saying.
But then it's the loss of Markstrom, who was a calming sounding board for Petey. It was a loss of Tanev, who was a calm sounding board for Quinn Hughes. They lost Malhotra, who was a calm sounding board for the whole team, and they never replaced them with anyone who could actually do that. You've got JT Miller, who is an I'm just going to say it right now. He's an absolute prick when things aren't going well. You can tell, like the amount of cursing that we've heard on the ice from him, like the excessive cursing, says a lot, and how grumpy he looks, and you can tell that there's a big, huge storm cloud hanging over him, and everyone around him is getting sucked in. So you have to find a way to fix that. You don't have, like I say, you don't have a calming presence as much as Edler is. I don't know if, for whatever reason, that he's not that guy for these players. Nate Schmidt's come in, but he's not. Again, he's more of an excitable, goofy class clown. They just don't have that for this team anymore, and it's just come off the rails. And when you lose player like good guy, like players who are part of the culture of the room, and something like this happens, and you don't have someone stepping up and being that for these players, especially in a tough year where you can't do what you're normally used to try and fix it. This is what happens. And you have to find, like, this is a point where someone needs to step up. This is where Bo Horvat needs to step up and find a way to be the calming presence. This is where, again, Alex Edler, you're here because you've been here for so long, and you should be that calming presence for this team. Apparently, you're not. And when you lose Tanev because you went off chasing rainbows and unicorns, like, it sucks. And I honestly think the loss of Tanev specifically, I think everyone understood the loss of Markstrom because they had Demko. You knew Markstrom was going to want a long-term contract with everything. And if you looking into the expansion draft, you weren't going to be able to keep both, so you had to make a decision, and they made the right decision on Markstrom. They did not make the right decision on Chris Tanev. Like, the 4 years and everything is tough, but you see how much he, like, I think you've seen how much he's meant to the Flames in such a short order, and how much he meant to the Canucks locker room in short order in this when seeing him not part of it. And I think they made an absolute, like, almost like just roster breaking, locker room breaking decision by trying to chase the Oliver Ekman-Larssons and the Tyson Berries instead of just understanding what Tanev brought, and understanding that, yes, at 4 years at $4 million plus, he might be an overpayment in terms of on ice and everything like that, but he brings so much more. And I think he might have been the glue guy for this locker room, and we're now seeing the results of not being willing to pay him for that.
And it's tough because he went to a rival. If he went to Pittsburgh, I think that everything I think that would have been a little bit of a easier bite to swallow. But he went to a rival, and a division rival. And I think that makes it harder to watch.
It makes it harder to watch. But if the Canucks were playing okay and, like, found a way to, like, not fall apart every fucking game, I think it'd be less of an issue. The issue is not where he went; it's just that he left. Yeah, it adds to it, but the core issue is that he's left. He's no longer part of this team, and the Canucks are paying for it.
Fair. Oh, Tyler, you're muted.
I am muted. There we go. It's pretty clear that the organization has sort of misjudged, what left and what they brought in to replace. They figured they would still get probably something, maybe a little bit of a step back from last year, but something not this bad. Clearly there was a miscalculation there as far as all the things Sean talked about, leadership qualities, the actual, play of the players that left, and clearly that has not been replaced to any significant degree. But, chasing after all the likes of Oliver Ekman-Larsson or Tyson Berry, I have to wonder, and people might think I'm nuts for suggesting this, but I have to wonder, is that ownership pushing that, or is that Jim Benning? Because if it's coming from ownership, then how are we able to blame Jim Benning for that? And I don't know. I get the feeling like, because we've seen this, right? We had the Louis Eriksson signing, I think, in 2016, and it's a chance for ownership to make a big splash. It's like Christmas for them, July 1st. They get to actually spend some money and use some power. And then after all of that's done, they kind of fade away again and don't have any real control over what happens. If it's ownership pushing for those decisions, and we've seen quite a number of them now where there's, really big dollars going out to bring in some guy that's known, a bit of a namer, not a superstar, but a bit of a namer to try and get everybody excited. If that's coming from ownership, I'm not sure how a change in general manager is going to solve that issue, and it is leaving them strong or hamstrung with the salary cap, obviously, and then that leads to their inability to re-sign Chris Tanev. I think if you look at each deal in isolation that Sean talked about with Markstrom and the term he was looking for and the no movement protection, that just wasn't going to work. They weren't going to get a deal done with Markstrom based on that. Chris Tanev, myself, I think, outside of the dressing room and leadership qualities on the ice, I think we've already seen probably the best of Chris Tanev. I mean, he's a guy that's been around a while with a lot of wear and tear and wanted a commitment and has a history of being out of the lineup quite often due to injuries. So I could see the reluctance for the organization to commit there. But that was a guy I think that, earned the right to invest a little more into, given his service to the organization and what he meant to the team in terms of leadership. And the fact that both him and Markstrom are gone is clearly a void that's showing right now.
Even if it is ownership that's saying we want to spend money and go after the toys, isn't it some part of Benny's responsibility to say, look, I'm sorry, we're not going after these toys. We need to sign Tanev. We need to work and get the players that we need to sign. We need to sign Troy from Richmond.
Yeah, it is. But, ultimately, if you can't come to an agreement, then you're gone. I mean, look what happened to Jim Rutherford in Pittsburgh. I mean, it's pretty obvious that what he wanted to do differs with ownership's views on the future of that team, and he resigned.
Benning, he's made some decent moves. He's made some questionable moves. One of the biggest issues I've had with him this whole time is communication and a lack of a perceived plan.
Yeah, and we're seeing more of that right now too.
He's chasing. He's like, oh, Oliver Ekman-Larsson's available. Let's chase that until we can't anymore. Oh, Tyson Barrie's maybe interested in coming here. Let's chase that. Oh, wait, we've lost this, that, and the other thing. That's the problem. Is there's no sort of plan. There's the communication in terms of what the plan is has always been an issue. Even back when it was Linden and Benning, the whole point of having Linden in that position was he was going to be the voice of the team. But then whenever Benning went and spoke with the media, it contradicted what Linden said. Like there just never seemed to be a cohesiveness idea of what they needed to do to build this team.
Yeah,
they've managed. They've had absolute horrendous lottery luck, but have managed to get a couple absolute studs in Pettersson and Hughes to build around. But they haven't really been they've got a few hits here or there, but they've got some massive misses in the draft as well. They haven't. Chatfield is the only defenseman that Jim Benning, outside of Quinn Hughes, Chatfield's the only defenseman that Jim Benning's developed under his tenure to play some NHL games. Outside of, you got Ashton Sautner playing like a handful of games. You've got Guillaume Brisebois playing a few. That's it. And that's a big issue. That's a huge issue.
And there's Ole Ulevi, and why isn't he playing? I mean, I don't, whether it's him or Chatfield, I guess you're kind of getting the same thing, but I play Ulevi. Come on. He was a 5th overall pick. Get him in there.
Devin?
It just screams very similar to Kyle Dubas and Mike Babcock, just having different views in the media, saying different things, and we all know how that worked out. So if Benning wants to save his job, he needs to find an answer, and he needs to find the scapegoat, and it sounds like that's going to be Green. And I mean, as far as the players go, the answer is within that room. Imagine if nothing happens, they keep Green, they don't make any trades, and they stand pat and be like, listen, guys, sure, we're getting our asses handed to here. This is a growing year for you, and this is a big, big year for Bo Horvat to show his maturity, to make sure that he's able to lead this team. And if he can make a difference within the results on the ice by leading by example, by calling people out, like a JT Miller, and whoever else is whining and bitching about this, because that's what your captain's supposed to do. That he is supposed to be leading by example, supposed to be keeping people accountable, and hopefully he can find that within himself. I think he has it. We've been praising him as a captain here for the past couple of years now. and it's one of those growing years. So whether or not they find a way to turn this around, Bo Horvat, this is huge for you.
Let's go through some comments here. Dylan, thank you, Dylan. Don't play Louis Eriksson. I guess that's a question of lineup. I mean, Justin Bailey was in, Louis Eriksson was in last night.
That was to me, that was a full on just Green throwing his hands up in the air and saying, "I don't know what else to do at this point." You're scratching McEwen, you're scratching Virtanen, you're scratching Gaudette. 3 young players that you expected and needed development growth years from, and you're scratching them. That says a lot in terms of Green is coaching for his job. Green understands that this goes on much longer. He is going home to Castlegar or wherever he's residing these days and watching the rest of the season, because the way this team is playing, how they can't seem to play with detail, can't seem to play with good decision making, and just continue to give the puck up over and over again in dangerous areas, and losing every battle in those dangerous areas too. Like you can blame JT Miller all you want, and you can't, and he's well deserved for that. For a couple of the Austin Matthews goals, but you have to win some of those puck battles. You have to find a way to make sure that the puck isn't squirting out into the middle of your defensive zone, so that and you've got a player coming in with tons of speed and skill to be able to just absolutely undress your goalie or your defenseman to create a goal. You have to win those battles. You have to find a way to make sure that even if you lose the battles, the puck's going into a safe spot. Like, come on, step up. It's really time for you guys, for this team to look and understand that they just aren't playing well enough, and they need to find a way to just even if it's literally just muck it around until you something happens for you. Just find a way to do that. Stop just. Even if it's just on the boards the whole goddamn game, as long as you're finding a way to not create high danger chances because of a lost puck battle, I'd be okay with that. And that's why they put Louis Eriksson in, is because he, for the most part, he understands it's get the puck out and get the puck deep. That's all he does.
Yeah, if the idea of putting Louis Eriksson in was to try and help the Canucks' defensive woes, well, that didn't work out either. And so now where does the coach go? I mean, he's thrown just about everything at the wall, hoping that it will stick, and it's not sticking. So, it's a pretty scary situation.
Next thing, who would we take over if we did fire the coach? So anyone coming in would have to quarantine for 2 weeks. I agree that Benning has to go, but I don't know if removing Green will help anything. I think it would get even worse for a couple of weeks if we did that. Well, first of all, I guess it would depend on who you bring in. We did some digging last night. Gerard Gallant is in Prince Edward Island, so he wouldn't have to quarantine. I'm not saying that it's Gerard Gallant that's being the head coach, but that if you're thinking of an option, that option is out there.
Whoever's coming in, if they're coming in out of that bubble, they're going to have to quarantine for 7 to 14 days.
Yeah.
Even if they're in PEI?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
because when Hamanuk came in, because I think he was still here in Calgary, he had to quarantine for 7 days before he was able to join in with everyone. So there's still going to be a quarantine period no matter who you choose. And that's one of the issues here. And that's why I wonder if it's actually going to be Benning that's gone, because then you actually Benning, but you have to make sure. Do not make it Weisbrod, please. If you're going to fire Benning, have a replacement in place. Have someone coming in. They can do that job from quarantine. They can do that job from their hotel room before they and not have to. That's why it makes sense to me that if you're going to make a move, you make the move that has a bigger impact long term, which is the GM. Yes,
You're going to
Green.
make the moves. I mean,
Yeah, Green is the cheaper option to fire too, because he's only got contract till the end of this season, while Benning's got another year after. But I see all this talk about whether or not they should fire it, whether or not the Aquilinis are going to fire the coach or the GM, and people thinking that they won't until the end of the season because of monetary reasons. You don't think Aquilini, even with the fact that there's no fans to boo them out of Rogers Arena, because that would happen. Like go back to the fire Gillis chance before they fired Mike Gillis. They would be the fire Benning chance that would be they would be blowing the roof off of Rogers Arena if there was fans in the stands.
There would be bags on heads.
There would be.
Yeah.
But you don't think that Francesco Aquilini understands how angry the fan base is right now? Like he understands that the sooner he makes the move to start selling the moving forward on from this, the better. You talk about consumer confidence, Kevin. You're not going to be able to sell if you wait till the end of the season and then have a GM rush in, make the decisions on the expansion draft, make the decisions about the UFA and potentially the draft, the entry draft. There's rumors that it might get moved back a year and have just this gigantic 2-year draft in 2022 because you don't know what the scouting is a mess, and let alone these kids playing. We don't know what that is, but there's so much stuff that needs to happen in such short order once this season ends. And if you're going to fire your GM at the end of the season, you're not going to you're going to put you're going to put your GM in a spot to your new GM in a spot where he may be pressed for time to make decisions, like potentially franchise changing decisions. And plus, you still have to find a way to sell the change to the fans. The sooner you make the move, the easier transition is for your GM, and the longer time you have to find a way to make to sell this move and the future of this team to the fans.
I'm really wondering. Again, it's a bit crazy suggestion, but I'm really wondering, if the organization, the ownership in particular, looked at how it went against Montreal and started putting the pieces in place to make a change here. If they make an announcement on Tuesday after the end of the road trip, that's a week after their second game in Montreal, I believe was last Tuesday. I mean, who knows? Maybe there is somebody out in the woodwork there that's doing the quarantine, and there's been some quiet discussions. I mean, there hasn't been a whiff of any kind of scuttlebutt in the media about it, but I would hope that there's some kind of due diligence being done on something, at least have some kind of alternatives thought out at this point, because if we continue to see this same thing over and over, you really do have to take Jim Benning's hands off the wheel, so to speak. They're just as great as some of the drafting has been, and the core that everybody's excited about the core pieces. He's had 7 years now. Like I think we all can feel, and I've always been a Jim Benning defender. I think we can all feel like the clock is ticking here for him, and the coach has been left with less to work with. That's the thing. The coach is we can blame the coach, and I think that what we see on the ice is a product of players not listening to the coaching, like Devin talked about. But if the coach is given a weaker hand to work with, then how much can we point the finger at him? I think it's got to be pointed all around.
Let me ask. I want to ask a question. We've talked about this, but maybe I'm going to ask it a little bit different. Other than the current climate that we live in, what other reason do you think that Travis Green has not been signed?
They're just being cheap. I think they're just being cheap. It was pointed out to me last night that apparently there was I didn't see the article, but apparently there was a Forbes article that talked about how the Canucks were the only Canadian franchise that decreased in value or something. And if that's the case, boy, and then you see how the players that have changed teams in the offseason and the tone of their comments, and Kevin, you brought up Chris Tanev, and how he left and how the other players left. It all kind of feels like there's some bitterness over the organization basically being cheap about things.
I really think that due to everything that has gone on, Aquilini and the family have really tightened their bank accounts and made sure that, and basically Jim Benning has had to beg and plead for every penny that he's spent. And with everything gone, and I think how the offseason went, I bet you the Aquilinis were like, we're thinking that if by chance we see what has happened, then they're not on the hook for another 2-3 years of Travis Green's money, because he's he's making $1 million a season right now, and then he's probably gonna want to raise. But you look at the market, at least before pre-pandemic, he was definitely going to get a raise. So I think it is a little bit of them just not wanting to spend money. The amount of players, amount of people that they jettisoned out of the organization behind the scenes during this pandemic was significant. And I know every team did that, but it doesn't seem like many of them are coming back. So I do think that there's definitely some cash poorness that has to be put in here, which is why I think there's a lot of people questioning whether or not a move will be made in this season, whether or not they'll just they won't let Benning make a move unless they know for sure it's a good move, and then they'll let both of them go at the end of the season.
But then this still confuses me if this is about the Aquilinis being cheap, because why are you trying to make a move for Oliver Ekman-Larsson then? Like, why
because
are you?
It was out there, and you could potentially get him for. There was hope that you could get him for a steal of a deal, but Benning would have had to sell that to them, and I think it sounded like he somehow did, but he was never able to make a deal that made sense for them. But the amount of cap that's being used up on bit players, I think, is finally the Aquilinis have finally said enough is enough, and you have to make sure that we do not have basically dead cap, because you're paying bottom 6 players $3 million plus for suboptimal performance.
So you're not. So I guess what I'm hearing from you two is you're not seeing this as there's no tactical reason that you're not giving Green an extension. This is financial.
I think it's all financial and then prepping just in case of whatever we're seeing now, because maybe I'm not explaining it correctly. I think the writing was on the wall after Benning bungled the offseason, that I think Aquilini probably would have liked to see them keep Tanev. This is me pure speculation on my part here. I think they were upset with how Benning got caught chasing. I think they were upset with the fact that Benning wasn't able to move out to cap to get to Foley, to bring back to Foley. I think they were upset with all that. And when you bring in a new GM, how often do they keep the old coach?
Not so
very often.
I think it's in setup for a new GM is what they're doing, is why they've decided to hold off on giving Green an extension, and especially under the current financial climate, where a lot of they are lacking in revenue to pay out a coach for 2, 3, 4 years to not coach. So I don't know if all this rambling or speculation is true or not. It's just how the more I think about it, and put the pieces together, I think that might be the reason why they haven't given Green the extension.
Makes
Devin?
sense to me.
One thing I think that's being lost in this conversation is the players. What the fuck are they doing to make things better? Like it's up to them on the ice to have the product and create a good. Just try harder. Like, honest to God, if they do fire Green, that puts the onus on them. And like if you just do the GM, then to me that doesn't have as much of an impact on the players as it does with them themselves, because they're the ones who play the game in, game out, and
Yeah.
I just feel like they need more responsibility for what's happening. And God, look, once again, like the fall from grace from last year to now. Yeah, you lost some players. Boo fucking who? Let's rally together. Let's be a good fucking team, or be good teammates to each other. And who knows? Maybe Miller needs to go if he's going to be pissing and moaning, and he could be the wedge in the locker room there. But to me, the players need to do something about it. And yes, it's hard to make a trade here within this weird season with the whole quarantining and everything. And you're going to be trading within your division if you're trading anybody and getting somebody back as soon as possible. But the players need to have some onus on them.
I totally agree. I think it is. They need to step up as well. They're caught in. If what I'm saying is correct, and they're definitely caught in limbo. But they still need to step up. They cannot be fun to play against. They need to be absolutely. They need to be pesky. They need to actually make those games hard for those teams. If they're not gonna be winning, you have to make sure that you make the other team earn those wins. They haven't made any of these teams earn those wins.
Just on the point of JT Miller, I mean, his season got off to a poor start, not being able to play and being in the COVID protocols and all that. And to me, he looks like a guy that's frustrated with that. He just hasn't been able to get on track at all here. And as each bad performance sort of piles onto the last one, it becomes more and more frustrating, where it looks like maybe he's the problem, but I think it's just a matter of frustration. I mean, I think there was a TSN 1040 poll question in the last week here asking whether fans think he should be healthy scratched. I mean, it's ludicrous. I mean, JT Miller's a great player. They gave up quite a bit in terms of trade value for him to bring him in here last year. So he's not going anywhere. They just got to ride it out with JT Miller. We can debate some other players, but I mean, JT Miller, we've seen JT Miller. He's a good player. He's been frustrated. I don't know if a coaching change will just magically cure that, but at some point he's going to smarten up and play better. But he's one of many that needs to step up. And I don't know. I mean, we've seen this over and over in hockey where, if the players stop believing in the coaching, it looks like they're not even trying. It looks like they're trying to get the coach fired. It's just perception. But it may take an actual change of coach to get the team to truly wake up.
To me, the way how the offseason went, who they lost and all that, I don't think it's just the coach that if they have given up on it, it's not just Green. It's the whole. It's Benning. It's everything like that. And I think that's if that's the case, it's not good. I have a hard time believing that they've given up on just Green. Yeah. I think it's a combination of everything, if that's the case.
I mean, as Devin pointed out, I mean, the linkage between the players and the coaches is a lot, more direct than it is with management. But if you're somebody that's been there for a while, or you're a core player or a veteran player, and you see the roster changes and you see the team's not as good, and then you see these results, I mean, they're human beings. It'd be easy to kind of throw your hands up and say, well, we don't have a chance. It kind of looks that way.
Well, if I want to, can we toss another player into this mess that I think needs a little bit of a criticism? That I did not realize that Brock Besser had 9 goals this season. He broke the shutout against Freddie Anderson in my fantasy team. But I got to be honest, I haven't noticed Brock Besser. Like, I have literally not noticed this guy.
I mean, that's just because the whole team is crap. That's really what it is. He's got 9 goals, and you're saying that he needs to be like it's the whole team, but he's not the issue. And I've looked up and down this roster trying to figure out who they can trade to get a value back. Maybe Besser's that, but I don't know. I feel like you'd rue the day that you trade him. Yeah. And at this point, you need to find a way to build around this core. You need to find someone who can build around this core, fix whatever is rotten in that room, and build around this core.
As far as Besser goes, Kevin, I mean, I don't think we're seeing anything different now than before. He's fairly one-dimensional. You know, when he's scoring, it's great. If he goes into a slump, then everybody's wondering WTF. You know, I don't think there's much different with Brock Besser right now than before.
Devin, do you have a thought on that?
I don't know. I just think that you guys at the beginning of the year were praising his he was becoming more of a 200-foot player in his defensive zone. So once again, if he's not scoring, then that's an issue. But right now he's scoring, so I wouldn't put the onus on him at all. It's Sean said it best. It's the entire team. The entire team needs to rally around each other and have some sort of camaraderie. I know it's super hard right now, especially with all the COVID protocols. They can't really have that a beer after the game to talk about their shit that they need to improve on. But they need to find it somehow, because if they don't, the season's fucked.
Well, they have the one game against Toronto, and then they have the 4-game series against Calgary, which will be the telltale sign of where this team is at. That's probably the biggest 4-game series of the season so far. I'm not saying that they must win. They must win 4 games, but I do think if you're the Canucks, a split is okay. 3 of 4 would be, if you sweep, that's fantastic. 3 of 4 would be fantastic. A split, I think, anything less than a split though.
Out of this week, you've got Monday. Do they have 2 days off, or is it Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday? They play 4 games this week. They've got a back-to-back. They've got 3 games against the Flames, and they need this week alone. They need to get 3 wins. If they don't get 3 wins, they're in real tough, because if they can get 2 wins out of the games versus Calgary, at least, then out of this week, then you're doing that against a team that's kind of in the same muck that you're in terms of the spot in the standings. So that helps you. But the other thing is, even when you lose, you cannot lose the way they're losing. Yeah, they have to show some fucking pride. They have to show a way. They have to find a way to I don't know. It's just, I know that there's no fans in this. There's no fans to rile them up. There's no fans to boo them out of the building, to piss them off. They need to find the emotion themselves. Like, I'm getting angry talking about this. I hope they're getting angry when they watch that. They're not getting just defeated. I hope they're getting angry. I hope they're finding a way to have a little piss and vinegar in their game come tomorrow versus Toronto. I want to see Zach McEwen in there going trucking. I want to see him running over the Leafs defense. I want to see Jake Virtanen just actually showing some fucking piss and vinegar in his game, because we want to see him be a power forward, even if he isn't. We want to see him drive the net hard. We want to see people like Antoine Roussel. Where the hell is Antoine Roussel and his absolute rat mentality that we saw in the bubble, where he was getting 10-minute misconducts because he was going above and beyond what's acceptable? I actually want to see that now. I want to see some fucking emotion from this team, instead of just this Eeyore type not giving a fuck attitude that they've presented to other teams and the fans. I want to see some fucking emotion from this team.
Yeah, and if we don't see it tomorrow, I mean, we're on the podcast right now. I'm waiting to see some kind of news.
I got a TS. I got to be honest. I just got a TSN notification. I was like, "Is it? Is it?"
Yeah. If there's no fight tomorrow, there's for sure going to be changes on Tuesday. And Sean, I just want to clarify the schedule there. They play Toronto tomorrow, and then they're back in action Thursday, Saturday, Monday at home against Calgary, and then kind of weird Wednesday the 17th at Calgary, and then back home against Winnipeg. Some bizarre scheduling there. Yeah. So you look at that and you see the 2 days off between games, and you think maybe that's the natural time to make some big changes, or they do it today and try and have it buried in the news cycle with the Super Bowl happening. I don't know. That's a common tactic in public relations.
Yeah, I mean, Corey Hirsch and Jeff Patterson both were speculating something could happen today. I mean, the obvious thing is Jake Virtanen, but
yeah, and I mean, those are pretty well connected guys. I take that seriously.
Yeah, but whatever you're going to get for Virtanen, if it's unless you're trading within division, you're going to end up having to wait a while to get whatever in return for him. So it's not going to be something that trade's not going to be an immediate fix to what is ailing this team.
Yeah, fair. And that was asked. I don't think the Oilers are going to be trading Evan Bouchard anytime soon,
especially for Schmidt. Oh my God, Evan Bouchard is going to be a top tier defender in this league. And yeah, that trade. I appreciate the thought process there, trying to figure out what could happen, but yeah, that's not going to happen.
And let's get this out of the way. Jake Virtanen for Sam Bennett is not happening.
No,
it's not. Sorry, like if you're the Flames, you're not making that trade.
Yeah.
The only reason that trade makes sense is Jake Virtanen's a right shot guy who they're a little thin on the right side with, but it just doesn't match up. No.
Anything
Shall
else?
Shall we move on from the Canucks before we depress ourselves even further?
Okay. Okay, let's all just group hug here.
Sean's about to exit stage right here.
I do want to ask this. I know that Sean's a little perturbed by the question that I asked, but Devin, maybe I'll ask it this way. What, from the Leafs perspective, what were the takeaways from this week? I mean, I know that we can get really myopic in looking at the Canucks and it was a national story, but what were the takeaways for the Leafs this week?
Simmons, fantastic player. Love the fact that he's on this team. I think him playing with Tavares and Nylander, that's a great call. You could see the poise that he had. Yes, the Vancouver Canucks. Sorry, this will be a bit of a Vancouver Canucks whipping party right now, but the Vancouver Canucks left him wide open on the side of the net, and he just roofed it. Nothing Holtby could do there. Love the way that he's playing right now.
That's bad news about him, though, Dave. I don't know if you saw this morning.
No,
6 weeks.
Oh,
yeah, hand injury apparently.
Yeah. Well, next man up, Mikheyev. Let's go. Haven't seen enough of him lately. Ever since he got hurt last year, haven't seen enough of Mikheyev. He hasn't been the same player that he was when he came in at the beginning of last year. So he needs to step up in that role. The one thing I am kind of concerned about right now is Tavares and Nylander 5-on-5. You haven't really been able to see them play too, like take over a shift, take over a period kind of thing. You can see them on the power play, of course, but you can see that they kind of did a line jiggle there with having Kerfoot with the quote-unquote top unit, Marner, Matthews. Now Simmons is gone, so he's not up there, and Riley. But I'm that's one thing that's really concerning me is not seeing them 5-on-5. But otherwise, I mean, it's just same old. Happy to see Muzzin. He's playing amazing hockey right now. Lehkonen, I thought that seeing him on the power play, that's awesome. I never thought that I'd actually anybody else would be on that power play other than a Dermott, even though he's injured. So that's been a nice surprise. Overall, like I said before, I just wish that Vancouver was able to push back a bit more and see some better hockey. I love seeing my team win, but watching good hockey is way better than seeing my team win.
There was times that Austin Matthews looked bored last night.
Oh my God. Okay, the other thing about Austin Matthews is the fact when he scores, he doesn't give a shit. He's like, okay, yeah, another day at the office. But seeing his emotion when Simmons scored and how happy he was, that's a sign of a good teammate. And I love seeing that. Just seeing his raw emotion towards his teammates, and the fact that he doesn't give a shit when he scores because he's like, yeah, I do this all the time. And that goal that he scored last night. Oh man, where he just undressed. What was it, Chatfield?
It was Chatfield.
Chatfield had a terrible night. I'm sorry. That was unfortunate for him. But it's kind of fun when you see the opposition. Jake Muzzin talked to him after not taking that offside that he should have, that resulted in a goal, and then he actually took the offside later in that period, and you could see him talk with Muzzin about it. So I thought that was kind of a fun moment as well.
This is going to get a lot more talk. I mean, I know that we're about to get into the Battle of Alberta, but the Leafs and the Habs, Wednesday night hockey, the top two teams in the North. I think that's going to be I'm going to say this. I think that that's the most interesting series that we will have. Well, I mean, Canucks Flames would be interesting, but I think the Leafs Habs are the top two in the North. They're already chirping. That's already snipping and snapping already. So, yeah,
that's going to be a fantastic series between them. But I just have a feeling, as of right now, Montreal struggled against Ottawa. The past two games that they played, they lost to them, and then they just barely won off of a scramble fucking clusterfuck in front of Matt Murray. Matt Murray made two fantastic saves, and then Josh Anderson was right there to get the game winner there for the 2-1 win yesterday. So I just have a feeling that they're kind of coming back to earth. So hopefully Toronto can make a push for that top spot within the next couple of games.
Okay. Anything else on the Leafs?
No, I mean, you got to think that Joe Thornton's going to get back in the lineup here pretty soon as well. So look forward to seeing him back on that top line, which he doesn't belong. I don't think he belongs up there, but yeah, I'm kind of curious on where he's going to be slotting in.
All right. Well, let's talk Flames Oilers. Let's get here. We're going to start here because it was one of the big talks of last night. I don't know. I'm going to move this up. Sorry. Let me.
Full screen it there, bud.
Got it at full screen. I got it at full screen. I just there we go.
Oh, the video at full screen.
Oh, hang on. Thank you. That's what you meant.
Yeah.
Oh, and I did not mean to do that. Here we go. Okay, let's go back. Here's the play. Hey, I'm a technical wizard. Here's the play that everyone was talking about. David goes in, lap. Tyler, referee.
Well, Tanev gets the puck before the legs, so it's not tripping. I know people want to say that it's tripping. Well, yes, the stick did trip him into the net, and thus he crashed into the goalie. But it's not a tripping penalty. So then the other thing is I mean, on the ice speed for the referee. I mean, it's so bang bang. He's taking a bit of a best guess as to whether how McDavid fell. When I was watching it in real time, I was like, oh, geez, he's got to call that penalty because he crashed into the goalie. Then you look at it on replay, and it's like, oh, well, he was actually tripped. I mean, people need to relax. Every time Connor McDavid has something, happen or not happen to him, and there's all this overreaction. He wasn't hurt. It was fairly immaterial to the outcome of the game. Like, people need to take a chill pill on that. I mean, that's a difficult call for any referee given the speed involved. It's Connor McDavid.
For me, I don't think there was a penalty at all. I don't think it should have been goalie interference. I don't think it should have been tripping. I think that's just hockey. I'm going to say that Oilers fans are a little sensitive with Connor McDavid. People are allowed to touch him. People are allowed to check him when he has the puck. People, you can't put him in bubble wrap and put a do not touch sticker on Connor McDavid, and every time someone touches him, it's a penalty. I'm sorry. I know that's what you want sometimes, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
I just think that was I can understand why the ref called the goaltender interference. I could have understood it if they called a trip. But in my opinion, it was There's nothing other than just a hockey play there. And if I could make a call on that, I wouldn't make a penalty call on either player.
And there's so many contradictions from Oilers people too. They're like, well, we don't want the referees to give the Stars preferential treatment, and then in the next sentence they turn around and ask for Connor McDavid to get preferential treatment. So I don't really have much time for any of that. Have we all forgotten how it used to be like 10, 15 years ago, where the Stars were basically being raped on every shift? You know, I mean, the NHL's always been like this, and yet people are acting like it's something new that Connor McDavid can't draw a penalty, or is there's some injustice associated with the referees and McDavid.
Yeah, to me, that was I believe that was the correct call, and I'll tell you why. I'm not saying this just because I'm a Flames fan. He was coming in at that speed, at that angle. I just don't, and the defense did a good job of pushing him to the outside. So I think that no matter what, whether he was tripped or not, he was going to run into Markstrom. And especially at that speed, like yes, he can turn on a dime, but when you're going 30 plus kilometers an hour driving to the net, it's look at that angle. Like he's going straight towards Markstrom. I just don't see whether or not he's tripped or not. It would have been, I think he would have just ran into him anyways.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, and then when McDavid does a slash or McDavid does a crotch check, whatever. I mean, it's.
They're fans. We're all fans. That's what it is.
That's
right?
what it is. And I get that. And I mean McDavid is the face of the league and all of that, and I get it. But I mean, I would have been okay if Tanev got a tripping penalty and McDavid got goaltender interference. I mean, they did that later in the game with a Lindholm embellishment and someone else.
That was a real strange one too. I thought like. It was so peripheral to the play, like just don't even call anything.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was particularly embellished.
Again, it's just how he fell. It was like a big like thunk, like it just looked unnatural, and I think that's why they decided to call it.
Yeah.
And then you had the Matthew Tkachuk phantom roughing call at the beginning. I mean that was
shit.
Yeah,
that was just a bump.
That that set the tone for the rest of the game. For the bet, like it just seemed like after that, like the whole hype was done with, because then it just went to a power play. And to me, that was where Calgary had a great start until that point, and then they were playing catch up the entire period because they had three penalties called on them, including that Matthew Tkachuk. You had the Yoki Nordstrom goaltender interference, fair, and then you had the Geo penalty that was delay a game. That's 6 minutes of your 20 that you're playing on the defensive side, let alone having a pushback shift or pushback couple shifts after those penalties. It's hard. So Calgary just needs to stay out of the box.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that the refs need maybe to not call phantom calls either. That's the other side.
For sure. Refs are terrible. They suck.
It's strange, like what's different about this year? I mean, are they just like there's no atmosphere in the rink? They're bored. They're calling more penalties. Has there been some directive to call it tighter? I mean, we never heard anything about that. It is strange. Or is it simply the officials that they've chosen to work in Canada during this pandemic season? Are they the ones that are more inclined to call it tighter compared to a lot of the other referees? It could be that. I don't know. It just seems to be out of nowhere that suddenly, taps are being called as penalties, and that's not what we're used to seeing in the NHL.
Well, and I mean, that wasn't only the Tkachuk one. I mean, there was the Arizona St. Louis game. There was a really bad call there. Brian Burke has highlighted a number of these are not penalties being called across the National Hockey League. I mean, the Boston Philly game, there was the interference call that the commentator thought was absolutely the right call, and Brian Burke was like, "That's not the right call." So certainly,
Thursday in the Canucks Leafs game, I mean, there was I can't remember who it was for the Leafs that got called for slashing, but I mean, it was like a tap, like a light tap. And
they're calling anything anytime the stick gets anywhere close to the hands. they're calling it slash hook, whatever. That just seems to be the standard right now for that.
So since it is a bit of a shortened season, do you think that the trend would be okay now? They've set the tone for what's acceptable now that they'll slowly transition towards letting more stuff go.
Oh, I think that's a natural phenomenon that always seems to happen. Yeah.
So I guess the takeaway here, the Flames had an interesting week too. I think it would have been interesting if they would have lost the Oilers, where this podcast would have went. Oh my. But they lost. They won in overtime against Winnipeg. They lost two in a row. They lost to Winnipeg, and then they lost in regulation to Winnipeg. They've trailed each time. I guess coming out of this win I don't think that this win against Edmonton was anything necessarily super spectacular. The first period was. I didn't like the first period. They did play better in the second and the third period. But I guess one of my concerns, Devin, is one of your leading 5-on-5 point scorers, 5-on-5, is Milan Lucic. And God love Milan Lucic. And I thank you. I thank the Edmonton Oilers for paying him his salary. But and he was really good last night. I'll give him credit for that. But that's also a red flag for me.
That is a red flag for sure. You want to see more from your top six on 5-on-5 and not just relying on the power play. You got to find a way to get Johnny Monty, that line going, and whoever's with them at that point. Bennett seems like he's okay on that line, roughing it up a little bit, but it is concerning for sure. But one player that I've said from the beginning that needs to get going is Michael Backlund. And he had a 3-point night last night. He got a goal and 2 assists. He's not playing the top 6 anymore, but his ice time there was 21 minutes and 34 seconds, and almost 4 minutes of that was shorthanded. So that was a good step in the right direction for Backlund. And he was actually up there. He was second. Yeah, he was second in ice time behind Elias Lindholm. So to me, that's showing more confidence that he's getting from the coach and that he's gaining himself, and that's massive for the Flames going forward here. But you do want to see more production from that top 6.
Yeah, Sean, Tyler, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, you need more production from the top 6 going forwards. If Milan Lucic is leading the way in terms of 5-on-5 offensive production, then that's an issue. As good as he is as a 3rd/4th line player, that's all he really is. But you need someone to step up and start producing at some point. So if it's him that gets everyone going, that's good for the Flames.
Yeah. I guess just one final fun comment. Are Flames fans having much of a time with Markstrom wandering out of the net?
He's got to stay in his head.
We're so used to it. We're so used to it, man.
I know. I just watched it last night. I've been to the number of times. I mean, he was in the corner for the longest time.
He nonchalantly went back to the net. He's like,
I know.
Good, whatever.
There's the old Markstrom. We saw him at Vancouver veering out of the net. Stay in the net, bud. In the pipes, Jacob.
Totally. But so going back on the top 6 there, they're doing the right things right now. I think I don't see anything that out of the ordinary that they're being flawed with. So I think that they're trending in the right direction as of right now, and they just need keep going on the process that they're on right now, and I think it'll pay off.
Yeah, I agree. Did anyone know what Dylan Dubé's face was doing on his goal?
I've been told it might be a John Cena reference, WWE, but I have no idea. It just was.
I could understand if he did the whole "you can't see me" thing, but he just went down. He's serious, so I don't know. Whatever it was, I loved it. I loved the seriousness of it. Honestly, having some fun with instead of doing a massive celly, it's something different and something unique. I loved it.
Yeah. To quickly call out our friend Graham, who's been on the podcast, and we do love Graham. I need to find this tweet first. So just give me a bit. Yes. Okay. He has been an avid defender of Mikko Koskinen for some time, and I'm just going to share this tweet with all of you. We love Graham, but let me make sure I have this. There we go. Please feel free to light me up for defending the goaltending ability of Mikko Koskinen. I feel shame. Graham, you should.
Everybody's being too hard on Mikko Koskinen. I mean, he's had to play all but one game. I think he's given them reasonably good goaltending. Wasn't great last night, but what do you guys want? Like, I don't know. It's just it's so easy. I mean, Edmonton is not the only fan base that does this, start pointing the finger at the goalie after a 6-4 loss. But did you see the chances that were being given up?
Do you see the defense that they have up there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's inevitable. Like you're kind of running him to the ground, and luckily for them, they have Mike Smith coming back here for next game.
Are you sure that's luckily for them? I don't know if it's luckily for them.
As far as giving him a break, though, right? He can't be running him out every single game like they did with Talbot, and look where that left them, right?
Yeah, I mean the Johnny Gaudreau goal last night. I mean the last guy back was McDavid. I mean everybody got caught up the ice. You're asking a lot of your goalie when that keeps happening over and over again. I mean, we've seen this with the Canucks.
Yeah, and it doesn't help when you've got Freddie Anderson making things work in Toronto, Connor Hellebuck in Winnipeg, and Jacob Markstrom in Calgary, keeping their teams in it when they have a bad game here or there. Koskinen isn't bad, but he's not good, and that's just the issue with the. And when you don't have a good defense and good team defense in front of a goalie like that, he's going to have games where he looks bad.
Yeah. Just to get back to the Flames, the Sam Bennett soap opera from last week, of course, Elliot Friedman reported he asked for a trade. Eric Francis said he didn't ask for a trade. Then it came out this week that he did ask for a trade. He was a healthy scratch on Thursday against Winnipeg, which I was thinking that's it. I don't think he was coming back. And he came back and played pretty well last night against the Oilers. And then there was the whole quote that Sam Bennett said that Jeff Ward didn't tell him that he was going to be scratched. He had to find on the whiteboard. Devin, I'll start with you, Devin. What are you thinking about this? Is this a distraction? Does this Bennett move need to happen sooner rather than later, or do you think that this is something that can be resolved?
It needs to happen sooner than later. The less distraction like this you have off ice, the better the team, I think, is going to play on the ice. Who knows if there's a division in the locker room? It doesn't seem like there is, but that's always a possibility too, especially when a guy asks for a trade and he's not playing well. But I thought he played well ever since he asked for that trade. I was surprised that he was scratched in that Winnipeg game, but I truly believe that there is potentially this is just my gut feeling that there was a trade potentially that could happen, and that's why he was left off the roster. And then this game, I can guarantee you, Tree Living, if that was the case, Tree Living said that, okay, well, to the other GM, if you're not going to pull the trigger on this, we need him tonight because it's a battle of Alberta. So there's potential that he could get hurt. But yeah, I think that the sooner that he moves on, the better it is for both Sam Bennett and the Calgary Flames. And so, this whole notion that, yeah, okay, and it kind of a little bit of a Jake Virtanen take here too. If you have a third liner that's going to go, and then you're wondering, oh no, what about this other player that's going to come to our team? They're going to have to wait 2 weeks. It's your third fucking line. Like, honestly, get somebody in there, get a young guy in there to bang crash and show that he wants to play in the league. Look at Höglander. It's his first year. He's showing that he wants to play in the league. Yeah, he's playing in the top six. But my point is that I don't think it's going to be that. Yes, it's going to be a loss, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a loss. put in Buddy Robinson. I love Buddy Robinson. I thought that last year he played super well. He plays with speed. He plays with energy. And that's something that I just veering off here for a second. Zach Ronaldo, you played fucking 2.5 minutes last night. That is it. That is unacceptable by the coaching staff. Jeff Ward needs to give his head a shake. You didn't see him out there at all. And when he wasn't bringing any energy whatsoever. And I know that you're playing in the Battle of Alberta and things can get rough and can get messy, but you can't have that. That's what, maybe 3 shifts the entire game. I don't know. That's just a waste of a roster spot. In my mind.
Draisaitl played a shift longer than him.
Yeah, exactly. That just baffles me. If you're going to dress a player, fucking play him. But sorry, I kind of went off on
that. Also, I see what you're saying, but I think the penalties in the beginning of the game, you couldn't get in that rhythm of throwing out all 4 of your lines either, to be fair as well. Because Goodrow, you weren't playing Monahan, Goodrow, and Bennett much in the first period. I see what you're saying. You got to play Ronaldo more, but I also think that it was the way that the game went too.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, whether or not it's Ronaldo or not, if you have a guy on your bench just fucking sitting there drinking water, that's a waste of a roster spot. You need to have players in the lineup that can actually play the game. And if you're just getting a fucking Ronaldo rat in the game just because, it doesn't make sense to me.
I definitely would have rather have seen Josh Olivo in that lineup last night.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Rose, I could understand. He takes faceoffs. I could kind of understand that because I haven't been super impressed with Dominic Simone, but I would have rather have seen Josh Olivo in the lineup. I think he'll score eventually here. I really do.
Yep. He's once again, it's about the process and how he's playing. I think he's been playing pretty decent and he's got a hell of a shot. So, and going back to him being the 3rd penalty shot player before Johnny Gaudreau, I think that was just Jeff Ward trying to give him a bit of a confidence boost. And unfortunately that he didn't score, but I think he will score eventually. But going back to Sam Bennett, I think that, he definitely needs to be traded sooner than later. And whether or not that's within division or not, I personally don't think it's that as big of a deal as some people are making it out to be.
What do we expect of a return for Sam Bennett?
Well, it sounds like Anaheim's been interested in him for a couple of years. So, I mean, my high hopes
Danny
are.
Drysdale. Let's pick Danny Drysdale. We have that? No.
Trevor Zegras. Anybody?
Trevor Zegras? Zegras and Drysdale for Sam Bennett.
Oh, man. I think that it could be a Jacob Silverberg or on the higher end.
No.
Hey, hold on. Let me finish there, Sean. And Kevin, Sean, you didn't say anything for once. I'm proud of you. I think that it's going to be a package deal. I don't think it's going to be one for one deal. I think it could be a package deal that could be involving anybody on the roster. And earlier in the week, I was thinking potentially, maybe Michael Backlund could be a part of that to try and get a different player or a higher end player than those guys. But I think I think maybe a Rickard Rakell could be a possibility too. Just with a proper package, Sean. Just don't give me the head shake. Honestly,
you're going to have to add a lot to Sam Bennett to get either of those guys.
If the rumors are true that Anaheim has been high on him for a long time, then that shows to me that they have value in this player and that they could be potentially changing what's happening.
Yeah.
I don't know. Rakell's scored 30 goals twice in the NHL. Silverberg is almost a guaranteed 20 goal scorer. I don't see it. Sorry. If Backlund is involved, then you have something there. But if Bennett is the key piece, you're going to have to set your sights lower.
I'm just saying that was my thought process. And yes, you're going to have to take a lot to get either of those players out of Anaheim. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. That Tree Living isn't shy of making big deals. So
They do need a top 6 forward. I think that is a priority that they need to fill. I mean, you're not getting for Sam Bennett 1-for-1 isn't happening, but I think maybe a package. Who knows? Is there anything else with the Flames we need to talk about here? All right, let's quickly move on here. There's been a lot of COVID postponements. We'll just quickly touch on that. My question is there a minimum amount of games that you think that the NHL will be satisfied that teams play? Like, i.e., I don't think these games are not. I think a lot of these postponements, they're not coming back. I don't see it. It's going to be hard. Maybe there is, but it's going to be really hard. But is there going to be a minimum amount of games that will be like, is there, any like 48, 45? I was like, okay, we can go there, and that will be enough to satisfy that we have a winning percentage.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I think what they're gonna try to do is make sure that every team in each division has played the same amount of games, or at least close, because of all the games were within the division. As long as you have every team in the division playing the same amount of games, I think that's fair. Looks like right now the North Division is on pace to be able to play all 56, but you never know what could happen there. But I do think maybe 42, 46, like in the 40 range, I think is what they're going to go for. Anything less than that, and I think it's going to be tough to say that it's a full season.
I have a totally different view on this. I don't think there's a set number. I think they're going to do the best they can to keep squeezing in the rescheduled games wherever they can as the season goes on. If they have to even extend the regular season by a week to accommodate other games, that's an option on the table. But I think at the end of the day, if there's games that haven't been played yet that won't have a mathematical impact on the playoff chase, then I think they just forego those ones.
Yeah, I echo Tyler's sentiments right there, or statement there. I think that, yes, ideally you want to have the most amount of games as possible, but as long as your division is, in a similar boat, then I don't think it matters too much.
I guess it'll depend on what happens here. I think there's still a lot to play here. I think they're operating with a little bit of an open canvas and not a black and white certainty here with a lot of this. So it's going to depend on a number of different things. By the way, next week they're having the outdoor games at Lake Tahoe.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. The other thing, I guess, Bell laid off a number of people this week, including Natasha Stennis. I'll butcher her name. Natasha S., well-known TS. I'm going to butcher. I don't want to butcher her last name. We all know
Stanishevsky.
Stanishevsky. Thank you. I just needed to practice. Stanishevsky, great sportscaster. Dan O'Toole, J and Dan. Brett Wallace, longtime Ottawa Senator, broadcaster. Tough week for Bell.
Yeah, and a few more people behind the scenes as well as the famed producer Tim Moriarty with and some others from Jay and Dan's show as well that are less known. I just want to touch on Brent Wallace, the first of the layoffs as far as namers from TSN, and how disappointing that is, because we often even on this podcast have our gripes about TSN and Sportsnet being very Toronto-centric, and yet here's another example of losing that local voice, that local presence in another market, and TSN is the TV and radio rights holder of the Ottawa Senators, and yet they're going to now do it, cheaper essentially with not a full-time dedicated TV reporter based in Ottawa. It's very disappointing. If I were a Senators fan, I'd be furious and once again feeling like a second-class citizen from TSN. But at the same time, let's not kid ourselves. It's a tough climate in the media business right now. If you look forward to the next couple of years, I mean, there was already a decline in ad revenue. Now we've got the pandemic, recovering from the pandemic. It's a scary time to be an executive at one of these companies, and you end up making really tough, unpopular decisions like these. it's too bad. Brent Wallace, 23 years with TSN, and then just boom, one day he's out of a job. It's pretty gutting, and I feel bad for him and Natasha and Dan and everybody else behind the scenes that have lost their jobs. Christian Jack as well.
That's
soccer coverage. Really, really great broadcaster. Really intelligent. Really raised the level of their soccer coverage, and he's out as well. All around, it's disappointing.
I guess for me, my frustration with all of this is what you said, Tyler. I get the ad revenue part, I get the advertising part, I get that. But you have, between TSN and Sportsnet, you have 11 stations of TV content that you could fill. And to be so focused on one city, Toronto, which I understand is the largest city and the largest market in Canada, and ignore everything else pretty much. I mean, let's go back to Hockey Central last night. It was 37 minutes Leafs of 3 minutes dedicated to Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary again. You turn on Sportsnet. I don't turn on Sportsnet and TSN's sports cast anymore because it's going to be 45 minutes of something from Toronto, and then the pittance goes everywhere else. There's been opportunities here for Sportsnet and TSN to create and support content across this country. Like Steve Dangle does his thing, and you can love or hate Steve Dangle. That's not the point, but there should be something like that going on in every market in this country that has a hockey market. Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal, Winnipeg, Ottawa. And it just seems to me that part of my frustration here is for me, I'm not turning on Sportsnet and TSN because I'm not going to get any local content from them. I'm not. I might as well just I'm going to turn on my 650. I'm going to turn on my 1040 or my 960 and get that local content. And I think that they're dropping the ball. And especially when you have 11 stations, there are opportunities here to be creative and do something. And I know that things cost money and all of that. And I understand what you're saying, but I also think that Bell and Rogers are also dropping the ball here a little bit. And I do think that they need to take the heat for that. They have been focused on one specific market when this country has said, like, look, I get you're from Toronto, but we're a big country. These are two Toronto networks that are acting like national networks, and they're not national networks.
Well, they did try at TSN to do something with the multiple feeds. Instead of just showing the regular Sports Center on 4 channels each morning, they had 2 different versions of Sports Center in the morning on looping on their channels, and they made the determination that that's costing them too much money. So one thing about the multiple feeds for both networks that's important to remember is that they are different channels you can show different programming on, but the purpose of having them is so they have room to show simultaneous live events. That's what it's about. It's not about
the 1% of the time that they actually have that.
Well, these days it's pretty thin, but in a lot of other occasions, they do need all the channels. Sometimes Sportsnet will have between baseball and the hockey playoffs and what have you. The Memorial Cup appears at some point. I mean, sometimes Sportsnet actually needs the CBC just for another feed to show some of their content. So there is that issue. It'd be nice to have unique programming on each of the feeds, but the industry's for a long time, even going back to when I was in the business, it's all been about trying to do more with less.
I mean, we don't have that Sports at 11. That's the sports page, those local things that, we used to turn on of like, oh, we got the Calgary. These are the Flames highlights. Oh, this is what's going on with high school football or the Western Hockey League. And I think that that's really missing across the country. I think that local feel is being missed across the country. And I do think that Rogers and Bell have an opportunity to be more supportive of it, and they haven't done it. And I think that it's starting to turn off a lot of people. I'm not going to get into the political part of when they made these decisions of layoffs. That's for a separate thing. But I do think Rogers and Bell can be better at supporting local content than they have.
There's so many ways to do more with less. Look at Steve Dangle is a perfect example. They still have him doing the videos from his basement setup because that's what it is. His studio that he has in his own house. is set up, and he does he does videos from that, and then they have someone else cut them up and produce them. And you can, if you get someone like that from someone from every market to do something like that, it would go a long way. Instead of just having the Leafs fed down our throats. Oh, look, Austin Matthews smiled at Mitch Marner during Leafs practice. Like, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but we've seen stuff like similar to that go put up on by TSN and Sportsnet on their national Twitter handle, Twitter stuff. And like, I get it. Great. It's content. It gets that done. But the fact is, you aren't doing that for everyone. And as Tyler said with Ottawa and losing Brent Wallace, you feel like a second class citizen in terms as a fan by the national broadcasters because of that. You've got it. You're willing to simulcast Toronto's Overdrive on TV, but not anyone else. Not anyone else around the country. You've got TSN radio in Vancouver. You've got I'm pretty sure there's TSN radio up in Edmonton, right? Yeah, and as well as in Winnipeg
and Ottawa.
Yeah. So you have it there, like Montreal. You have it. You've got access to all this.
Yeah,
use it. Even if you're not simulcasting it onto a radio, onto TV, find a way to promote that. You can watch it on Facebook Live or whatever. Use that to promote it. Like, that's all they need to do is build star. Then you can actually build stars. I think what Steve Dangle worked his fucking ass off to get where he's at and deserves all the credit in the world. You can nitpick on what he's like and how entertaining he is to you, but he's worked his ass off.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he deserves everything that he's gotten.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, it's time to start building other stars. TSN has the Bar Down crew that are doing fantastic work on their YouTube channels and everything. And I think they deserve to get some more recognition with what they're doing. And you need to find other people to do it. Like the guys here in Airdrie, behind the bench.
Off the bench.
Off the bench. Those guys, they deserve it. You should get those guys. Fucking Dart guy. A guy who has got famous for having his face painted by for the Maple Leafs with a cigarette sticking out of his mouth, got a fucking radio show on TSN and it even got like national airplay because of it. Mm-hmm. Yet these guys, off the bench guys, are working their ass off. They'd be great. Give them something. You've got I'm sure you've got other local people. I can only speak for Vancouver in terms of that. There's tons of people in Vancouver that deserve a shot. They could bring something different. Wyatt and Jay Bowman, I think, deserve something. Like I listen to them all the time, and they cover everything on their show. They make sure that they don't deep dive into the despair that can consume the Vancouver market. They make fun of each other. They don't take things seriously, but they still can do analysis. But with a show, like, as long as you're entertaining, you can bring the analysis on. Mm-hmm. You need to be entertaining. And 90% of the shit that goes on TV is not entertaining. Having Jeff O'Neill and whatever everyone else on that show talk from their houses and not really make sense half the time is not entertaining. And then taking shots at please, let's find a way to make things. Let's find a way to just build people up and build new stars instead of just the same boring ass shit every time we see and just simulcasting radio on TV. It doesn't work.
That's more my issue is that Overdrive, I think, works really well as a radio show. And if you're in Toronto and you understand the what they're talking about, it makes a lot of sense. But putting the three boxes up on the TV and just listening to them yak You know, I mean, we're 4 boxes yakking, but we're not TS10.
Yeah,
You know, it's a little bit different.
I mean, obviously it's working, because if it wasn't working, they weren't get the ratings, then it would be a different story, right?
Well, they've done the cost benefit analysis and said it's the right.
In the money sense, maybe, but is it?
Well, I mean, I know that you know it can be entertaining, but it's one of those things where, like Tim and Sid, there's certain things that they do. If you didn't start follow them from the very beginning, then it might not resonate with you that well, right? It might be entertaining for some people, and obviously it's not for others, right? I'm not saying it's Tim and Sid for you guys, but just saying in general, it is a lack of content, and that there are people out there who can be entertaining and have their own little spin on things that we do need to promote more. I mean, the hockey podcast here is the best podcast in Canada. Period. End story. Underrated. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to us. It's awesome, and promote us, because you know if you like us, then maybe we could be one of those game changers.
And I guess my final point is you have plays. Like, how many times have you seen plays of the month for hours on end, like just in the 22nd of the last? It's like there is ways to create and develop content that is not like it just seems so myopic in their view that it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating to see. That's all I'm saying. And
I think one of the big things that has come out of this is you've got people like Dan, you've got people like Grady Sass, who was part of the Bar Down crew. Just that what they're saying is that there's not enough support for these people who are putting good content out there, who are trying to find a way to push the envelope and create things that aren't there. They're not supporting them, at least. And then that from there, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but the girl who was hosting the plays of the month and all that, she just she just left Sportsnet for mental health reasons. I don't know what they are, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same thing, where they're just pushing for to get more out of less. Yeah. And instead of fostering and promoting and fostering and helping these people create the content that would really be a game changer, they're just like leaving them out for an island. And then if things don't happen, then they get cut. And unfortunately, I think that's what's happened here. And I think it's what is the biggest thing that needs to be changed.
Let's leave it there. Anyone are we watching the Super Bowl? I'm watching the Super Bowl. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
No.
I've got to start making all my snacks.
Yeah. I got my snacks right here. I'm getting ready.
I've got to run to the store and get started on that.
Okay.
I'm not making a prediction on the Super Bowl.
Okay, we'll leave predictions.
All I'll say is, like, my luck with cheering for teams is not good. The Canucks suck, Liverpool sucks, and so I'm hoping that KC can pull it out again, because I am tired of Tom Brady, but which is probably going to mean that Tom Brady is going to win another one. So
yeah, I guess I'll make the comment that be careful. Doubting Brady or betting against Brady, you can never count that guy down.
Yeah, you can't really. I mean, he's a true Hall of Famer there. But my prediction is that Jordan Spieth is going to win the Waste Management tournament.
And I don't know, and I'm not making a prediction on the Puppy Bowl either. I have no idea. But I will say this: I think this will be one of the higher rated watch Super Bowls of all time.
Oh yeah,
well, yeah. What else are we doing?
Yeah, we got nothing else to do. Sit on a podcast.
Yeah, Tony's getting fired up right now.
All right, how do we follow everyone?
I am BeardedConnect03 on Twitter,
and I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I'm on Twitter at Gordhouse09.
Heidi is Heidi Maysball Schneid, who would not come on this podcast because he is too depressed and sad about the Canucks. SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE. Podcast_hockey. Facebook.com. YouTube.com. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. TheHockeyPodcast.com. We will be back midweek. We didn't determine what day that is yet, so I can't say, but we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.